Autumn evenings in Portland always carry a certain kind of magic. The breeze is soft, the sunlight gentle, tree-lined streets shimmer with shades of red and gold. Quaint wooden houses rest quietly behind blankets of fallen maple leaves. In East Portland, everything slows down as the city exhales from a day of hustle. Down a narrow alley, Emma Rivera zipped up her jacket, ready to head to work. She stepped out of the small vintage house she shared with her mother, Teresa. In her hand was a worn canvas tote bag holding her spa uniform and the familiar bottle of peppermint essential oil. Emma worked as a reflexologist at a holistic wellness center known for its natural healing therapies. Her job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, kept food on the table, and covered her mother's medicine. To outsiders, she was just a simple Latin American girl with an unimpressive job. Foot massage, they would whisper. They gossiped as if her profession somehow placed her below the dignity scale of a progressive city like this. But Emma never felt ashamed. As long as I do nothing wrong and I can take care of Mom, no one gets to judge me, she reminded herself constantly. As she passed the neighborhood laundromat, she caught a familiar voice murmuring, "That Emma girl's off to work again, always heading out late. Wonder what she really does." Emma had grown used to the whispers, but never once did she feel ashamed. She knew exactly what her work meant. Every time she eased the swollen feet of an elderly woman or helped someone breathe easier after a long day, she was offering peace, and to her that was worth more than any fancy title. "As long as my hands are doing honest work, I can hold my head high," she often reminded herself. People could judge, they could misunderstand, but Emma didn't live to please shallow opinions. She lived to care for her mother, to work with purpose, and to move through this world with quiet dignity, never needing to bow her head for anything except kindness. Tonight would be like any other night, or maybe not. In the tiny kitchen, filled with the scent of cinnamon and pumpkin soup, Teresa moved carefully around the stove, her steps slow, her hands steady. A faded dish towel hung from her shoulder, and her worn slippers tapped gently on the tiled floor. Emma walked in, set her bag quietly on the table, and poured a glass of water for her mother. "Evening shift again?" "Yeah, one of the therapists called in sick. We're a bit short-staffed tonight." Teresa paused, looking at her daughter with both affection and concern. "Emma, can I ask you something? Are you planning to live like this forever? Work, home, sleep? No love? No dates?" Emma chuckled softly. "Mom, love isn't always the fairy tale Hallmark makes it out to be. So you're going to live your life on autopilot just to keep me calm?" Silence filled the room. Why did she avoid love? Because the last person she trusted disappeared without a word. That kind of pain doesn't just vanish, it lingers, like salt pressed into an old wound. "You know, sweetheart," Teresa sat at the table, her voice calm. "It doesn't matter what job you do or where you come from. Everyone deserves to be loved. I didn't raise you to live out of fear." Emma held her mother's hand gently and smiled, though her heart tightened. "I just want to focus on taking care of you right now. I'm growing old, Mija. If you spend your whole life only looking after me, you'll miss living your own." Teresa sighed and leaned down to tie Emma's shoelaces, just like when she was a child. "Just promise me, if someone ever makes your heart stir again, don't let the past slam the door shut." Emma squeezed her mother's hand and kissed her cheek. "I'll be careful. Your daughter doesn't fall easily anymore." As she stepped out of the house, her heart still felt heavy. She wasn't truly closed to love. She was just afraid. Afraid that no one would ever look at her and see someone worth choosing. After all, who was she? A reflexologist in a tiny alley, carrying invisible scars. But maybe, just maybe, her mother was right. Maybe out there, someone existed who'd be brave enough to reach the part of her she always hid away. Tucked beneath golden maple trees in an old Portland neighborhood stood Serenity Roots, a quiet holistic therapy center. There were no flashy signs or LED boards, just a white wooden house with soft meditation music drifting from its windows. Inside, lavender and peppermint oil filled the air, wrapping visitors in instant calm. Emma had just finished changing into her beige uniform when she heard her manager, Yvonne, call out, "Emma, you've got room 3, VIP client, name's Liam Walker." Emma raised an eyebrow. The name sounded oddly familiar. She walked to the front desk to check the appointment log. Liam Walker, full-body reflexology, first-time client. She nodded, grabbed her tray with towels, oils, and clipboard, and walked toward the treatment room. Inside sat a man, tall, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark jeans, his posture relaxed but composed. The soft lighting highlighted the defined lines of his face. No bodyguards, no airs, just a presence that demanded quiet attention. Emma cleared her throat softly. "Good evening, I'm Emma, your therapist tonight. Are you ready to begin?" The man looked up and smiled gently. "Born ready for foot therapy." She let out a light laugh, caught off guard by the unexpected humor. He laid back on the massage bed, and Emma placed her hands gently on his soles, beginning the pressure sequence. The room was silent, save for the meditation music and his steady breaths. Everything was going smoothly until... Prit. The sound was soft but unmistakable. Emma's hands froze. Liam didn't move. A dead silence fell over the room. Emma glanced at him. His eyes were shut, but his ears noticeably red. I'm sorry," he murmured, barely audible, as if apologizing to the universe itself. Emma almost laughed aloud but steadied herself. "It's okay. Bodily responses are completely normal during deep relaxation." "Right. Or maybe that sushi at lunch wasn't such a good idea." Emma nodded, her lips twitching. "Or maybe I hit the release button reflex point." This time, both of them burst into laughter. The awkward air melted instantly. Liam shook his head in disbelief, while Emma waved a hand with mock drama. "If you book again, bring a gas mask for me, will you? Next time I'll bring flowers and a written apology." It was the first time in months Emma had laughed so freely at work. Not because the client was attractive, but because not many people are brave enough to own an embarrassing moment with such grace. And fewer still could make her heart flutter. Because of a fart. After the unexpected burst of laughter, the treatment room seemed lighter, like all the invisible walls had quietly crumbled. Emma continued the reflexology session, her hands working with practiced ease, but her heart unexpectedly lighter. "You're the first client to make me laugh so hard I nearly pulled a muscle," she said, her voice calm but clearly amused. Liam chuckled, eyes still twinkling. "Does that earn me a discount for next time? If you show up without sushi in your system, we'll talk." More laughter, each joke, each glance. They bridged the gap that once existed between a client and his therapist. Though still within professional bounds, Emma couldn't help but feel a soft shift in the air between them. "Do you visit spas often?" she asked. "Not really, this is actually my first time trying reflexology," Liam replied. "My friend suggested it, said it might help with stress." "CEO life is tightrope walking without a net." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Ah, a CEO. Now the earlier incident makes sense. That wasn't just a fart. It was years of corporate tension escaping." "Exactly. A release of both pressure and dignity." They laughed again, easily, naturally. Surrounded by soft music and warm light, Emma realized she hadn't felt this at ease in a long time. There was something about Liam's way, funny without trying, sincere without effort, that felt safe. "How long have you been in Portland?" she asked. "About 3 years. Opened a branch office here. This city's peaceful. A little offbeat, like me." Emma nodded. She understood that feeling all too well. "What about you?" he asked. "Born and raised here. Been doing reflexology for over 5 years now. It's not glamorous, but I like helping people feel a little better when they walk out." Liam looked at her, not with amusement this time, but with something quieter. "I think that's beautiful, honest, and worth admiring." Emma's throat tightened slightly. Had anyone looked at her like that in years? The session ended. Liam got dressed, thanked her politely, and headed for the door. But just before stepping out, he turned, hesitating. "If I booked another session, would you take it?" Emma tilted her head, trying to sound unfazed. "As long as you skip the sushi next time, then I'll bring peanut butter sandwiches. Guaranteed silence." And just like that, he left, leaving behind the scent of peppermint and a stillness in her chest that didn't feel like fear, but something unfamiliar. Something warm. As Liam drove away from the spa, the images replayed in his head. Soft peppermint in the air, the amber glow of the room, and that unexpected burst of laughter from a woman named Emma. She wasn't like the women he met in business circles, where power, sharpness, and curated charm ruled every interaction. Emma didn't need to try to be captivating. She simply was, calm, genuine, with eyes that made you want to speak a little softer. How strange that a single reflexology session could shake something in him more than any boardroom meeting ever had. Leaning back in his seat, Liam chuckled to himself. Maybe, just maybe, when your heart reacts to something so small, it's not small at all. Across town, Emma was straightening sheets and organizing her oils, but her mind still lingered on that look. His look, part nervous, part kind, and completely unfiltered. She sensed something about Liam, a man who didn't rush, who didn't hide behind noise, and maybe, just maybe, felt a little lonely too. Though just another client, something about him felt familiar, too familiar, and that's exactly why she knew she needed to draw the line. Be careful, Emma. You can't afford to hope for things that were never promised. She clutched her uniform close and took a deep breath, but still, her heart whispered, differently. Emma didn't expect to see Liam again. After all, real life rarely offers second chapters. But fate, quiet, stubborn fate, had other plans. Encounters like that usually drift away like a breeze. But for some reason, the echo of that moment lingered in her chest. As for Liam, he tried to shake Emma's image from his mind all week. But whenever he sat still, her laugh came back. Soft, honest, disarming. And just when both of them had accepted that whatever spark they felt was fleeting, fate decided it wasn't finished with them yet. A Sunday morning call from the wellness center, a VIP client requested an in-office session. The location? 35th floor of Maple Tower. She agreed, mainly for the decent pay and because her schedule was open. Maple Tower was sleek and intimidating, the kind of building that felt more like a bank vault than a place of work. Emma entered the elevator, clutching her canvas bag. She pressed the button for the 35th floor and settled in. The elevator paused at the 10th. The doors opened, and there he was, Liam. Same crisp shirt, same slightly tousled hair, but his expression held something different this time. Familiarity, surprise, and a silent smile that said more than words ever could. The doors closed. Neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It simply existed. And then the elevator stopped. A click, a flicker of lights, dead stillness. Emma leaned against the wall, taking in a slow breath. Liam calmly pressed the emergency button. The operator responded, "Help was on the way. Estimated wait, 15 minutes." Time shifted. Inside that confined metal box, with nothing but soft ambient lighting and the hum of machinery, the world outside ceased to matter. Emma sat down on the floor. Liam joined her a moment later, not too close, but not far either. Their hands didn't touch, but their hearts drifted. Liam eventually spoke, his voice lower, thoughtful. He mentioned thinking about her after their session, how she made him feel at ease, like he didn't have to perform or pretend. Emma didn't respond right away. Her mind was a whirl of conflicting feelings, comfort, curiosity, and fear. She was afraid that this might be real, afraid that if she let herself feel, it would lead to the same kind of heartbreak she'd quietly survived once before. Liam seemed sincere, but sincerity was no guarantee. Still, he didn't rush. He didn't push. He just sat there, waiting, present. Their eyes met, and in that silence, something unspoken passed between them. Liam leaned in. Emma didn't move away. The kiss that followed wasn't dramatic. It didn't demand anything. It simply happened. Gentle, real. A moment of truth in the stillness. When the elevator came back to life and the doors opened, they stood quietly. No declarations, no promises. But something had shifted. Emma followed Liam to the 35th floor. Not as a reflexologist meeting a client, but as a woman slowly, cautiously, allowing herself to be seen. And maybe, just maybe, I should feel again. Emma said very little during the remainder of the session. Her hands moved with practiced precision, her voice remained calm, but her heart wasn't there. It was still back in the elevator, floating somewhere between that shared look and the kiss that followed. Liam, ever perceptive, didn't push. He didn't linger after the session. But in his eyes, those eyes Emma tried not to meet, was something unfinished, something left hanging between two people who were suddenly not strangers anymore. That night, Emma returned home and dropped her bag without turning on the lights. The room bathed in the soft glow of the street lamps outside. She sat in silence, as if afraid that even a breath too deep might break her apart. Something beautiful had happened, and somehow that terrified her more than anything. For the first time in years, Emma felt herself standing at the edge of something vast, something she never believed was meant for her. And when joy felt too real, she began to doubt she deserved it. Emma woke up the next morning with a strange weight in her chest, somewhere between peace and pressure. Her lips still remembered the kiss, but her heart had already started to pull away. Something had shifted. She felt it, clearly and quietly. It wasn't loud, but it was real. And maybe that's why it scared her more. Because it hadn't come with promises. Only a moment. Soft, unexpected, and just strong enough to shake her. She didn't resent the feeling. In fact, she cherished it, like a rare flower blooming in the wrong season. Beautiful, but never meant to last. Her life had always been simple, structured, predictable, a steady rhythm of work, caring for her mother, and the comfort of small routines. Liam lived in a world that felt galaxies away, filled with power, choices, and possibilities she'd never had the luxury to imagine. Could two such worlds really meet without breaking? Emma didn't wait to find out. Not because Liam lacked goodness, but because deep down, she feared she was a temporary chapter in someone else's story. Never the ending. That afternoon, she handed in her resignation. The letter was brief, almost cold. "I need to leave Portland for a while. Thank you for everything." She packed up quietly. No farewell notes, no explanations. Not even to Liam. Especially not to Liam. She couldn't risk him asking why, because then she'd have to admit that she was afraid of being seen and chosen. Before leaving, Emma stood outside the spa, gazing at the old wooden sign she'd passed 1,000 times. This place had given her meaning, and for a moment, it had even given her hope. But like most good things in her life, hope had proven too fragile. That night, she boarded a bus headed south to Santa Barbara, where her aunt lived by the sea. A quiet place. A place where she could disappear without having to explain who she'd once been. She sat by the window, watching the highway lights flicker past like memories she wasn't ready to name. There was no sadness, not quite, but there wasn't peace either. She didn't know if this was the right decision. She only knew that if she stayed, if Liam looked at her one more time with those eyes, she wouldn't be strong enough to walk away. And so, like she had always done, Emma chose to leave. Not because she didn't want love, but because she hadn't yet learned how to love herself first. After that session, Liam waited. A text, a call, anything from Emma, but she vanished like she was never there. He called the center, only to be told she had quit. No explanation, no forwarding information, just gone. And for the first time in years, Liam didn't know what to do. He tried her number, disconnected. He sent messages, no reply. Days passed, then weeks. The silence became louder. Liam wasn't used to helplessness. In business, he always had a backup plan. But with Emma, the one person who made him feel real, he was lost. Desperate, he went back to the wellness center, pretending to rebook. A young woman named Rosie hesitated, then leaned in. She left, went to stay with her aunt in Santa Barbara. Didn't give much detail, just said she needed to disappear for a while. That was all he needed. The next morning, Liam drove out of Portland before sunrise. 10 hours behind the wheel, through quiet highways, unfamiliar towns, and long stretches of thinking too much. But he didn't stop. Santa Barbara greeted him with salt air, soft sun, and a quiet calm. He had no address, just a mention of a bookstore where Emma's aunt sometimes worked. He walked street after street, searching for the name. Late in the afternoon, he found it. Sea Breeze Pages. Through the glass, he saw her, tying up books, hair pulled back, a beige sweater over her shoulders. No makeup, no mask, just Emma. She looked beautiful, not because of light or pose, but because she was her. The door chimed as he stepped inside. Emma looked up, and everything stopped. She froze. No words, no smile, but her eyes welled with tears. He stepped forward, voice low but steady. "I came for you." Her lips trembled. "Why?" "Because you left, and I couldn't let that be the end." He breathed in deeply, searching for the right words. "I don't need perfect. I don't care what you do or where you come from. I just know, when you disappeared, everything felt empty." She shook slightly. She thought she was ready to walk away. But now, with him here, voice raw, eyes pleading, every wall she'd built crumbled. "You didn't have to do this." "I didn't have to. I wanted to, because I choose you." There was nothing left to say. Emma could hardly believe her eyes. The man she had tried so hard to forget, the one she'd been running from for weeks, stood there, inside her aunt's seaside bookshop, looking at her like she was the only thing that mattered. Everything around her blurred. The books, the light, the quiet murmur of the ocean outside, it all faded. Only Liam remained. He didn't speak right away. He just looked at her, steady and quiet, as if seeing her again was the only thing he'd ever wanted. Her heart pounded. Her hands trembled. The walls she'd spent weeks building began to crack. When Liam finally spoke, his voice was low, soft, but it cut straight through her. Not a demand, not a "why did you leave?" Just 5 simple words. "I came to find you." And with that, something broke inside her. Because no one had ever come for her. People left. People forgot. Emma had grown used to being the one who stayed behind. But here he was, not angry, not desperate, just honest, just there. Every word he said afterward, every quiet step he took toward her, chipped away at the armor she'd worn for too long. Not because of grand gestures, but because of the way he looked at her, with patience, with knowing, and without fear of her scars. Emma didn't speak. She simply walked to him and wrapped her arms around him. And in that embrace, she stopped running. For the first time, she started to believe. She was worthy of being loved. Since that day in the bookstore, Emma wasn't running anymore. She was learning, slowly, hesitantly, how to stay. But love had never been easy for her. The closer she got to Liam, the more she felt old scars begin to sting. Memories she had buried deep, now rising with every soft smile he gave. Every moment of quiet waiting he offered. Liam never pushed. He didn't demand answers or promises. He simply stayed, with a kind of patience that felt both unfamiliar and safe. Then one late afternoon, they sat side by side on a quiet bench in the little park near the bookstore. The golden hour light softened everything, but Liam said nothing. He simply waited, knowing that if she'd chosen to stay, she deserved the space to speak. This time, her eyes didn't look away. Only truth remained, and a fear she'd never quite learned to name. Emma's hands were folded tightly in her lap. Her gaze stayed low. "I thought I was strong enough to love again," she began, her voice low and hoarse. "But I've just been hiding. Not from you, from myself." Liam turned gently toward her, listening. She inhaled slowly, steadying herself. "I once fell for someone. He came in gentle, kind, thoughtful. But when he found out what I did for work, he left. Told me he was ashamed to introduce me to his family." Her laugh was short, bitter. "Since then, I shrank. I shut doors. I convinced myself love was too expensive for someone like me, that I shouldn't dream about something I'd never be enough for." Liam stayed quiet. No interruption, just presence. "You're the first person who's ever made me feel seen," she continued, her voice breaking, "and that terrified me. You're a CEO. You live in a world I don't even understand. And I'm just a reflexologist, a woman who's been abandoned, who people think isn't enough." She turned to him, eyes searching. "Are you sure you understand what you're doing? Are you sure you won't regret being with someone like me?" Liam reached for her hand. "You don't have to prove anything," he said gently. "I love you, not because of what you do or don't have. I love the way you live, the way you care, the quiet strength you carry." He looked into her, voice unwavering. "Love isn't a transaction. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor, polished or broken. It only needs you to be real. And me, to choose you." Emma's tears spilled, but they weren't from fear this time. They were release. And in that moment, she knew she didn't need to run anymore. Liam didn't return to Portland. Instead, he requested time off and stayed in Santa Barbara, settling into a small guest room next to Emma's aunt's garden. The whole town seemed to notice. The man from the city who came, just for one girl. At first, Emma was unsure. She wasn't used to being the one pursued, let alone by someone in polished shoes trying to chop firewood. Liam began with a request: a small patch of yard to grow lavender, Emma's favorite flower once mentioned in passing. He had no gardening experience, but every morning he was out under the sun, digging, sweating, planting. Once, he proudly pulled a weed that turned out to be her aunt's cherished basil. Emma laughed so hard she had to sit down. Then came the firewood. He tried to start a wood stove and nearly smoked out the kitchen. He bathed the family dog, Tofu, who then ran through the garden and planted muddy paws all over Liam's white shirt. And when he insisted on patching the roof himself, he slipped, landed in a pile of dry leaves, and came down with a scraped elbow and a bruised ego. Every evening he sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, pretending to read while occasionally glancing toward the house, hoping she might peek out. She did, and slowly her heart softened, not from any grand gesture, but from the simple, clumsy, honest way he stayed. Weeks passed. The lavender bloomed. Soft purple stretched across the garden, filling the air with calm sweetness. Liam didn't say a word. He simply left a small lavender pot on Emma's windowsill with a note. "I won't leave unless you say, you can stay." Emma stepped outside, the note in her hand. She looked at the garden, the sweat on his brow, the way he still knelt in the dirt. He looked up, surprised. She didn't speak right away, just smiled. Then sat beside him and whispered, "I think you should stay." And with that, no more words were needed. Love had taken root, quietly, sweetly, just like lavender in bloom. Since the day Emma told him to stay, there was no more hiding. Life didn't change overnight. There were no miracles, no sweeping grand gestures, just a quiet rhythm where glances no longer darted away and long-lost hopes began to feel possible. Liam learned to live slower, simpler. He was no longer the man checking emails between bites of toast. Now he watered plants, swept porches, and listened to the quiet stories of a sleepy seaside town. Emma smiled more, genuinely, easily. Gone was the guarded look, the shadow of a woman who once ran from her own heart. And one afternoon, as they sat by the blooming lavender field, Liam took her hand gently and asked, "Have you ever thought about starting something together?" And so Emma and Liam returned to Portland, not as two strangers crossing paths, but as two people choosing to walk the rest of the road together. This time, they weren't going back to what was. They were building something new, side by side. With Liam's help, Emma opened a small wellness center on the quieter side of East Portland. But it wasn't just any spa. It was designed especially for the elderly and the visually impaired. Everything was calming, intuitive, warm, more like a home than a clinic. Emma greeted every guest with her gentle smile. Here, an aching grandmother found relief. A widower found a friend. And those who couldn't see found a place where they were truly heard. Liam? He became the unofficial assistant. He mopped floors, brewed herbal tea, and often found himself chatting with the regulars about arthritis remedies and lavender foot soaks. He stepped away from full-time CEO duties to focus on helping Emma build a space where healing felt human. One golden afternoon, they hosted a small backyard wedding behind the center. No frills, just close friends, old clients, co-workers, and a sea of soft lavender swaying in the breeze. Emma wore a simple white dress. Liam's suit had a wrinkle from moving chairs 20 minutes before the vows. It was perfect. The ceremony was intimate, joyful, full of giggles. When the officiant asked, "Does anyone object to this union?" Mr. Marvin, an old regular, raised his hand, only to ask for another cookie. And just as Liam began his vows, a loud fart echoed from the front row. Silence. One beat. Then laughter erupted. Emma covered her face, laughing until she teared up. Liam shook his head, smiling helplessly. When things settled, he turned to her and said, "Even if you fart every day, I'll still choose you." Emma grinned through her tears. "Then you better bring a gas mask to bed." Laughter filled the garden again. Honest, real, imperfect. Just like love. True love doesn't always begin with a look. Sometimes it begins with a fart. Just enough to make you laugh, breathe, and know you're loved exactly as you are.